Uh, a very good afternoon, everyone. Hope I'm audible. Hello.
Yes, you're audible, Preeti.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. A very good afternoon, everyone. On the behalf of Team Just Agriculture Education Group and Shere Kashmir University of Agricultural Science and Technology, Kashmir, I Preetivat cordially welcome you all to the Millets Mahotsav, that is 3 days international workshop on millets. As we all know, on the behest of Government of India and with the support of other 75 countries, the United Nations General Assembly accepted India's proposal at its 75th session in March 2021 and declared the year 2023 as the International Year of Millets. And this whole year, we will be celebrating that. Food and Agriculture Organization is the lead agency for celebrating this year in collaboration with the other relevant stakeholders. You all must be already aware that back in the year 2011 and in the year 2014, the Union government promoted millets under the initiative of nutritional security through intensive millets promotion. The Union government declared the year 2018 as the National Year of Millets also to trigger an increase in demand. In the same year, these grains were officially rebranded as Nutri Cereals. This program was merged with the National Food Security Mission (NFSM) and implemented in the other 14 states also. Uh, Several states led separate missions to promote millets. In the year 2021, the center approved the Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Nirman, that is PM Poshan Yojana, earlier known as Midday Meal Scheme, in government and government-aided schools and advised the state's government to include millets in their midday meal menu to enhance the nutritional outcome. So India's efforts to promote the consumption and production of millets got a boost when the United Nations General Assembly accepted the country's proposal and dedicated the 2023 year for spreading awareness about these grains. The declaration has been instrumental for the government of India to be at the forefront in celebrating this International Year of Millets. The Agriculture Ministry said in a statement and tell that the PM Modi's vision to make International Year of Millets 2023 as a people's movement and positioning India as the global hub for millets. So the Indian millets recipes and the value added products are accepted globally. Millets were earlier referred as coarse cereals or the cereals for the poor. Millets, which offers more than one nutrition to the diet and are considered as more nutritious than rice and wheat. With a low carbon and water footprint, growing millets is also beneficial for farmers. So, to promote this scheme and to increase awareness about its consumption and health benefits, Team Just Agriculture is taking the step to organize the program called Millets Mahotsav and to celebrate the International Year of Millets 2023. So, this program will run for for the next 3 days. We shall be having eminent guest lecture series on the millets and its potential. So today we are having three speakers with us. So without any further delay, I would like to tell you about our first speaker, who is Mrs. Premangi Khagram. So I hope our ma'am has joined the meeting. Mrs. Premangi, who is an MBA in marketing with professional experience of 7+ years. Mrs. Premangi centers her proficiency in marketing, public relations, and business development. To carry the legacy of her grandfather's fresh garlic business, her brainchild Oceanus Exports Private Limited deals into processed fruits, vegetables, and powders, that is dehydrated, freeze-dried, and retro technology. The same has been encouraged by Government of India and funded by KVIC, that is Khadi and Village Industries Commission. She is mentoring a few agro-based college startups of Marwadi University, Rajkot, and being mentored by Sri Dinesh Oja and a few veterans of processed food industry also. We are more than happy to have you here, madam. I hope you are there in the meeting. Please, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, a very good afternoon to all of you here. I just had one question here that I do see very less participants. So is it directly that it is going to YouTube and there we have more amount of people?
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, there were a lot of participants, so we could not able to get them into Zoom. So that's why we are YouTube streaming.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you for the qualification, Preeti. Uh, Firstly, it is Miss Primangi Khagram. I belong from Oceana Exports Private Limited. As I already have been mentioned of what we do specifically, but just would like to highlight of the products and the type of business that I'm into, which is we are into dehydrated fruits, vegetables, and powders. We also do different types of vegetables with different technologies, as mentioned rightly by Preeti. We do air dried, we do heat pump, we do freeze dried, and that's how, because we see that convenience has become one of the very core or the most important principles of the coming era of food, which is why we want to serve convenience and anything which is at the doorsteps of quick eating. While when we touch around what exactly the question or what exactly the topic of this point of time is that I'm going to discuss regarding millets. Um, let's say millets have recently become the international year, focusing on a lot, but why is it that we are focusing on millets becoming, let's say, if we talk about India, the reason because India has been promoting millets or India has been made to promote millets is that when you compare on a global, let's say, podium on, and when you compare the global production capacity, the overall amount of total production capacity that India is able to or is currently producing is almost the third position in comparison to many other developed countries, and which is why India has the locational benefit of producing more amount of millets. Now, when India is promoting International Year of Millets, that itself means that it is also focusing on the exports of millets, right? The first touch base is why is it that the export of millets is becoming easier? Because A, whatever we were eating in terms of local breads is considered as it has gluten, it has GMO. So there are many other health cautions that gets attached when you are not able to eat a wholesome type of meal. Which is why when millets are getting added, the most important thing that it gets added with your routine meal is the health proportion part is in a quite balanced form when you're eating either of the millets on one or the other day. So, just clarifying myself to the audience who is listening to me that we have got the locational benefit of millets, and that is why India has been promoting International Year of Millets as this year, that is 2023. Second, that what are the types of products you do see or you have been seeing. Recently, I visited one of the biggest exhibitions of the world of food, which is Gulf Food, which was recently in Dubai. And there I saw that India, in terms of APEDA, has promoted a huge amount of millet-based startups. Now, what does millet-based startups do? Very specifically, millet-based startups are very much focused on just promoting anything which is made out of millets. Why so? And why do we do that? You've been eating cookies, you've been eating dosas, you've been eating chaklis, you've been eating chocolates, you've been eating popcorns. Recently, I saw pastas made out of millets, even makhanas for say. My focus or my point to tell you is that millets have become the center of food in terms of making or baking any product. The reason is because government is promoting a huge amount of millets. In case if you want to understand how much is the government promoting, you must see or say, let's say, Google out government benefits for companies doing millets business. That's where you will lead to the right answers of how much is the government promoting. There are points where the government is providing 50% subsidy, and that's very subjective because you need to understand it very carefully as to wherein and in which exact statement are you filling in, and how is it that you can get benefited in case if you're looking for a millet based business. One thing which I want to clarify, Preeti, are we taking some photographs? I would love to have them. If not, please do take them while the session is on and send me at the end of my session. Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Thank you. So the second question or the second thing which I'm gonna, as I already mentioned, is why are we eating millets? As I rightly said, because millets have a nutritional benefit and we have a capacity of locational benefit, and that is why we are eating millets. As I mentioned that I recently visited Gulf Food and I saw many such products, I would like to highlight that APEDA, or say Government of India, has been promoting millets in context of making any specific thing. Let's say if you have an idea or you have a proper concrete application part of what you can do with millets, I'm sure you should try for the application part, because there are a huge amount of benefits that you can leverage. More importantly, if you are going for production or say any processing of millets, that is something which is going to wholesomely help you in converting a good business of your millets into international millets here. That is where we are standing up at. The third thing that I'm going to focus in terms when I say millets is where uh, we did understand a little that we have a locational benefit of having a good amount of products from millet. We also have been making, let's say that there are friends who were doing different businesses, but this year becoming millets year, I do see them doing a lot of millets based products. Reason being, the promotional part helps them. Also because they're already getting subsidized, they get a lot of products which they can also export, and that's why they also can gain a lot of marketing benefit from the government itself. The third thing that now leverages is how and in which way can you start a millet based business. In case if you have any business, let me just give you 1.5 minute. Figure out what can be done if you have any thought for a millet based business. And what you can also do, I am sure that it's not easy for you to reach me out directly, but just open up your LinkedIn for say. Right now, just open up your LinkedIn. All of you, just pick up your phone, open up your LinkedIn, and type my name, which is Premangi Khagram, Premangi, Premangi Khagram, Khadram. Start following me over there. And if you have any questions or you want to talk to me longer, and if you have any idea that you want to talk regarding millets, what I can do is I can directly put you up with a PEDA who can help you with good benefits. So get in touch with me in case you have any questions and queries. Message me all of those things so that we remain in longer touch. Of course, this is one of those sessions that is just an introductory phase of what millets is all about. But if you have a real concrete idea, you can follow me there and you can ping me on saying that you want some suggestions. I will try to help you. Try is a good word because I belong to a little different industry than yours, but I'll try that if you can get some good benefits out of what my contacts are, I would love to do that, right? Fourth thing, there are a few most important things that you would or like to or should understand while you want to or whenever you feel like getting up into the business of millets. The first thing that you should write down, I think this is something which has to stay longer with you, is uh, what is the outcome of that business? It should not be money, fame, and growth. The outcome of the business should be something which is leveraging, the employment, leveraging the exports, or leveraging the dollar-based earnings of India. If you are clear that your product is strong enough, then answer this one question, and I'll also have more for further questions. But one thing, what is the outcome of your business except money and growth and fame? If you have any answers, just write down right now. That will help you create a more clearer base for your own sense. Okay. If you have written this, I would like to ask you second question. That is, if you're clear that your first answer is clear, then what is the product that you're figuring out for a millet-based business? So millet is one such flour which can help you create hundreds and crores of product. But that one product which you're figuring out, I'll give you here 1.5 minutes, figure out. Just put up some permutations and combinations and figure out that what is it that one business that you might think of. And you can still give answers in 5, 7, 5 or 7 products can all still be, you're still not clueless. You're still clueless. You're on a confusion mode. You can write 5 products, 7 products, which can be your tentative products, but write down. It is 3:16. I'll stop myself and start again at 3:18. 2 minutes given to you here. Okay, I hope we have got some answers in terms of what are the products that one should do in terms of business for millets. If yes, we still have half a minute. You can still think of. Even if you don't have any answer, don't worry. Just scribble yourself. Think of what can also be done. The most funniest answer becomes the most interesting product, let me tell you. Okay, I think we're up with the time. Uh, Once your product part is clear or unclear, however it is, you need to figure out who can be your potential buyer. Who are you going to sell it to? You know, one transaction of business has to have a seller and a buyer, right? So if I have confirmed that I want to sell this product, I need to have a buyer. Mention down the list of people or the list of categories, let's say, who can be my buyers. Let's say if I'm in the business of dehydrated products, my immediate buyers are industrial products, industries. So industries which are into ketchup, sauces, pickles, chutneys, ready to eat, ready to cook, instant mixes, soups, all of this based in India or all across the world are my buyers. I know this, but do you know this? Just clear yourself or floss yourself up and think of it. One another minute given for this particular thing. Who are your buyers? It's not easy that I'm trying to give this exercise to you, but what I'm doing is I'm triggering your minds. This triggering of minds is going to be helpful to you when I complete this session, because my session does not have answers, it has questions. Okay, one more minute given to you for buyers. So we figured out, or we are trying to figure out, that millet is a good business. Which are the products that I should do in millet? Who is my buyer? Tentatively, let's also figure out what is the amount of money that we need to do a millet-based business. Well, no business can run without money, and no business can survive without money. So, on an approximation, this is going to be not a 1 minute thing, I am for sure known of it, but As I said you, what are my questions always will trigger you to have bigger questions. So just figure out that in case if you are interested with a millet-based business, which is the amount or what is the amount of money that you need for doing this business. One more minute given. Herein, I'll just try to make you understand that money includes many things. You will have to run an office. As you're seeing, my office is being run right now. You need to have employees, as you're seeing people coming over here, going because they are doing their works. So it has some fixed expenses. It has some variable expenses. Uh, Fixed includes machinery, fixed includes the laptop which I'm talking to you with, fixed includes all the other things in terms of furnitures and fixtures that I'm putting, which are you seeing in my office. Uh, Variable includes my office salary. It includes many other things that I travel for or tour myself for my business. It also includes marketing expenses because products like ours that we do, we need a lot of customer acquisition cost, which includes marketing. So just try to understand and analyze the headings. Well, your parents would have always said you that earning money is not good or earning money is not so easy, not so good. But when we say that we are getting into a business of our own, even if you are just getting employed, you're working with a company, you'd understand the amount of the shouldering that this company has. So it takes a huge amount of money not to start the business, and a lot of guts and confidence and risk on your head. So just figure out what is the amount that you come down to. That's just by headings and titles. It will never be the rawest amount of money, but just figure out. अभी कैलकुलेट कीजिए आप, आपको पता चलेगा कहाँ पे आप गलत जा रहे हैं कॉस्ट. Okay. Um, this is not going to be that boring session where I'm just speaking and you are just listening. This is going to be a little interactive. I know that the audience is on YouTube, and that's where the interaction more becomes very tough because I'll not be able to hear your questions. But as I said, LinkedIn is one medium. Please shoot me your questions or your triggers that you have once we complete the session. Meantime, what we also can do is, I've already asked you a good three amount of questions: product, buyer, and money. What is left? What is left? In case if you know your logistics cycle, right? Anything is adhura if this product and the buyer and seller meet and they do the business, but the product is not going to the seller, or the buyer is not getting the product, or the seller is not getting the product. So supply chain management, the whole chain where the product comes to the seller, then the seller actually transfers or logistically supplies the product to the buyer. So your supply chain management is the most important key role when you're thinking of the business, or even if you're not. You'd be doing something in life, right? You'll be working with someone in life, you'll be working under someone. This is very important. In case if you're dealing with a product, your supply chain management, the type of service that you're going to provide is going to be the most important part. So figure out the route. My point is, maybe let's say if you start from millets, is going to start from farmer. So from farmer, the millets are actually procured, right? You will be buying the millets. आप उनसे खरीदेंगे, फिर आप क्या करेंगे, आप अपनी फैक्ट्री पे उसको लेके आएंगे. उसको आप फैक्ट्री पे लेके आए, फिर आप जैसे आपने लेट्स से XYZ नाम का प्रोडक्ट सोचा है कि आप उसका बिस्किट बनाएंगे, चलिए लेट्स से बिस्किट बनाए. तो फर्स्ट प्रोसेस क्या हुई? Procuring the material from the farmer. Farmer based है XYZ जगह पर मध्य प्रदेश में, मान लीजिए आपकी फैक्ट्री है यूपी में, ऐसा मान लीजिए, तो उसको एमपी से यूपी में आपको प्रोक्योर करना होगा, ठीक है, दैट इज वन प्रोसेस। सेकेंड प्रोसेस इज आपका, आप जब आपकी यूपी की फैक्ट्री में आता है तो आपकी मशीनरी, आपका आपका सेटअप रेडी होना चाहिए so that you can process the material, right? You've already, आपके पास मिलेट्स आ गए हैं, उसके अलावा बिस्किट्स में जितनी भी 10 चीजें आपको चाहिए थी, आपने सब कुछ प्रोक्योर कर लिया, right, from different places. So that was your first part, that you've procured the material. Now second part is that once you've procured the material from its base station, now it gets into your factory. आपकी फैक्ट्री में वो ट्रक आता है. So now what you've got to do is you have to make a biscuit out of it. And for making a biscuit, what you have to do is process it. So the processing is the second step to your supply chain management. Once that processing of making a biscuit happens, I'm not getting into कि वो कैसे biscuit बन रहा है, but वो बन गया आप मान लीजिए. Then the material is getting packed. वो pack होता है as per buyer's need. Now, as the material is ready in your factory in UP, let's say your buyer is based in Australia, right? Now, if your buyer is based in Australia, what happens is, as per the let's say as per the terms that has been set for logistics, आपको अगर उसको FOB पहुंचाना है, free on board, in case if you know the terms of exports, free on board is something that you've got to, तो आपको वो मटेरियल को वहां से उठाना है आपको खुद को, राइट? उसको उठा के आपको उसको, लेट्स से आपको जो भी नजदीक का पोर्ट पड़ रहा है, गुजरात में अगर हमारी बात करें, हमें मुंद्रा पोर्ट नजदीक पड़ता है जहां से हम बेस्ड। अब अगर आप यूपी में बेस्ड है, जैसे आपकी फैक्ट्री यूपी में बेस्ड है, जो नजदीक का पोर्ट पड़ रहा है आपको उसको वहां पे पहुंचाना है, दैट मच आपको उसको वो प्रोसेस को वहां पे खत्म करवाना है, दैट मच इज योर जॉब, FOB, फ्री ऑन बोर्ड। आपको वो वहां पे ऑन बोर्ड पहुंचा देना है कि ये मटेरियल रेडी है, फिर आगे की प्रोसेस उसकी साइड से होगी, बायर की साइड से, ठीक है? तो इतना हुआ आपका लॉजिस्टिक्स, सप्लाई चेन मैनेजमेंट। इसमें थर्ड प्रोसेस क्या आई? सेकेंड प्रोसेस थी प्रोसेसिंग इट टू द राइट मटेरियल, दैट इज बिस्किट। थर्ड इज letting it reach to the buyer's station point, which was XYZ port, right? Now this much was your logistics, supply chain, whatever you say. Now sometimes it will be directly letting it reach to the buyer's factory. कभी कभार वो बोलते हैं मुझे मेरे घर पे पहुंचाओ, दैट्स अ टर्म, उस पे उसको ज्यादा पैसे देने होते हैं, तो वो हमें करना पड़ता है, बट दैट इज वेरी मच डिफरेंट in terms of the terms that he has set for the deal. So you have to figure out, you tell me in another 3 minutes, this is a little trickier process to understand, that आप कहाँ पे बेस्ड हो, आप रॉ मटेरियल कहाँ से प्रोक्योर करोगे, टेंटेटिवली, सब टेंटेटिवली मानो, सिर्फ आपकी अजम्पशन के लिए, आपका माइंड खोलने के लिए ये एक्सरसाइज करवा रही हूँ कि व्हाट इज योर सप्लाई chain management. It is 3:29. We will start at 3:32. I'm giving you a little more time because this is gonna take a little more of your brainstorming. Okay? Okay, I think supply chain management has been one of those questions which is not an overnight business, but it takes some more time. And audience, whatever questions that I'm asking you are just trigger points. Consider this as a day job and a day homework for you in case there are a few things that you are not getting clearer of. That's fine. That's pretty fine. It is not important to take at one point of time. Just take it slowly. And my point is have questions. It will lead you to some answers and have again another questions, right? Okay, so it is the time that I said that we'll be starting up with another question. This is going to be the last question from my side. Um, when we have said that we are doing the business of millets, these are our buyers, this is the amount of money that we need, and this is my supply chain management. What gets left is anything else that you see that gets left. You have funds a little in hand, maybe. And this is one of the things that I said that you should be checking up on YouTube, but you still should know is government benefits for a millet-based business. You know, this is something which will leverage or support your whole financial system. Um, this is, of course, where YouTube will help you more. But what you can do is you can Google out and you can actually visit a few websites. Again, International Year of Millets is on a high promotion mode. So just check by yourself of the amount of government benefits that millet-based startups are actually getting leverage with. This is my fifth question, which I think is actually going to be a little of your research base, right? This I'm not going to give it right now or straight away to you, but you can surf out a little more. And if you have phone in hand, just do one thing, give another 2 minutes and write the same question that I put it in Google and try to see some analysis. Just check it out. So that if something is triggered you there after this particular session, you can go back to that and reread these things. Just giving you another 2 minutes. You can surf around government benefits for millet-based startups. I can give you many which I know, but I want you to, shuffle that a little more, and I want you to learn and study by your own self. Yes, you can start that. Okay, I think 3 minutes has passed, and all that I think should have been passed in a session like this, I have tried to. But I would still like to say in another 3 minutes, because I think our session is just on a conclusion mode, is that maybe this is just a session of millets. That's why I'm focused, or I was focused toward millets. But it is not important to leverage only which the government is wanting you to leverage. You can have your own thoughts. You can have uh, a business, let's say, not into millets, and that's absolutely fine. I personally believe in the model of longer or longevity working. Just because something is right now in a good promotion mode doesn't mean that you pick up that as business and work on it. Um, it has its own benefits, and it will have its own sidelines, because you might face more competition at one point of time together, because currently everyone is wanting to get into it. So just also trying to show you the weaker part of getting into a business like this right now, because there are too many players who are right now getting into it. Your product, it has a unique value proposition, it will be well accepted, and then only it will have its own flourishing market. Otherwise, there are many same type of products which I do see in the market, and almost everything looks almost similar, right? So make sure that if you guys are students, so for me the responsibility is to educate you that see to your part that you have something in unique to present, be it millets here or not, but something you need to present to the world in terms of your business. If you do, if it is millet or not, go with it. You're not getting subsidized, that's pretty fine. Your business model has to have some benefits, which is actually going to help you with a longer amount of business, right? I think that was the end of my session. It is a sharp 3:41 here as I'm seeing the time. In case if there are any questions and queries, I think for 4 or 5 another minutes, we can try to take them. Preeti, you can help me into this.
First of all, thank you so much, ma'am. Always, actually, two-way interaction is always the best, but unfortunately, you could not interact with the students or our members directly. But yeah, we have few questions, ma'am. So the first question somebody is asking is like, is your organization is working in millets area also?
No, we don't work with
Okay.
millets. What happens is we work with drying of millets in some or the other way. Let's say we have received products like dehydrated floors of millets, drying the millet floors. So that's something which is very less, but we don't peculiarly work with that. We work with dehydration, some simple, that is what we say is drying of fruits, vegetables, herbs, you say onion and garlic, and this is what we do. In case if there is drying needed to anything, we can provide, because drying is a simple process. We just take out water out of it, and once water is taken out of it, what the product has is shelf life. So normally our products have a shelf life of minimum 1 year, and that's what we do.
Okay. So, ma'am, which all are the other areas your organization is actually working, like other than this millets, like other than the dehydrated things you told? So which all other areas are there?
The areas that I work, I recently mentioned that is a quite bigger bouquet of list. If you see, if you want to really understand what we do, you can just type down www.oceanasexports.com. That's the name of our company. We are based out in Ahmedabad. And what we can also do is, Preeti, if you want a proper analysis, I can put my catalog to you. You can have a
Yes,
basic
ma'am.
understanding to the whole team, and that's where they'll come to know better.
Yes, ma'am. Like when now students are because interested in the talk that you had and the work that you and your organization do. So like there's a question like do you offer some kind of internship or some kind of training or some kind of programs for students like this? So do you offer
We
these
do
kind of?
provide internships.
Okay.
We provide internships from our base office, that is Ahmedabad, which we are based out in Gujarat itself. So we are only offering internships from Gujarat, Ahmedabad, right from our base location.
Okay. So like ma'am, for how much time it will be and like
So it's a 3 month internship. To be very specific, we are only looking for students or interested interns who have a base of agriculture, right? We only hire people as interns also who have some base of learning of MBA or have learning of agriculture. If they are
Okay.
already doing this or then they are interested, what they can do is they can shoot a small LinkedIn message to me, or they can mail me down at team@oceanasexports.com. Our team can look into it and come down with whenever we have some good openings in terms of internships. Yes.
Okay. So ma'am, like, yeah, thank you so much for showing your interest in like taking our students for this kind of opportunities. So yeah, if anybody wants to join with you or some kind of internship or something, if they want to do, then they can definitely be keeping in touch with you through LinkedIn. So I request my participants if they want to do these kind of internship or some other programs, please have a touch with ma'am. So with this, I'm still waiting for some other questions are there, ma'am. I think we can wait for another some time. Some more questions are coming.
There's one question that Sarim, I'm sorry, Sarim, if I'm speaking it wrong, but Sarim has mentioned that can millets be used for making ethanol? Yes, pearl-based millets can be used for ethanol. Just to make you understand, pearl-based millets can actually be an alternative for the feedstock also. Feedstock का वो एक alternative काफी अच्छा पैदा होता है. And if ethanol is made out of millets, then it somehow becomes a little more healthier option also. So for more, you can of course study the books that are made on millet-based ethanols, but yes, it can be one of the alternatives.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, we are going towards the end of the session. So I have a request to make like, what's your advice to our budding entrepreneurs? Like you're also a young and very, like you can say, budding entrepreneur itself. So would you like to give some advice to our entrepreneurs who are emerging or who are trying to make something, some business or some kind of things? Agriculture background also they are having. So what's the advice, ma'am?
There's one thing that I would say that is as people belonging to the same industry, all of us, we must keep our eyes, ears, and nose sharpened because the products and the needs of the business is just around us. We need to, of course, work extra, but we need to find products which can make people's life and eating more simpler. So if you're looking for a startup, it does not require a reverse osmosis system. It just requires a straight solution, and that is where when you keep your eyes, ears, and noses open, the solution is just in your hands. Simple, right?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
That I'll have to
Uh,
leave. I have something soon to start. Thank you so much, Preeti. I hope the session was well and I could deliver what was needed. And further some, again, as I mentioned, LinkedIn is a good way to get in touch with me. Thank you, students. I hope you learn something out of it and stay in touch. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving your time. And we are happy to have you here. So looking forward to meet you some in some other meetings as well. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
So participants, our next guest will be joining within a while. So I would request you to keep patience while he joins.
होर्डिंग्स लगा हुआ है इधर, क्यों होर्डिंग्स लगे हैं ना, फाउंटेन है ना, फाउंटेन उधर, फाउंटेन के साथ ही। अब मुझे सुबह सवेरे फोन ये करोगे?
Naveed sir, ma'am is joining. Hello.
हिमानी मैम आ गई है?
हाँ जी सर बताइए।
बोल जी आप ठीक है?
हाँ जी
एक
बढ़िया
बार
सर, मैम को
एक
कराइए
बार
ज्वाइन
मुझे
है।
ना यहाँ ये कर दीजिए, बिकॉज आई वांट टू शेयर माय प्रेजेंटेशन।
सर आप को होस्ट ही हैं।
कोर्स है तो यहाँ
जी।
कुछ दिखा के है, क्योंकि मैम इसी पे ये कर देगी।
ओके ओके ओके, आपको राइट्स दे दिए, आप कर सकते हो स्टार्ट।
जी जी, एक मिनट मैम। पानी आना हो किचन पर। हेलो, हाँ बड़वाल जी, हेलो।
हाँ जी सर,
स्क्रीन पे आ रहा है, प्रेजेंटेशन आ रही है
स्क्रीन
नहीं?
विजिबल है सर, आप प्रेजेंटेशन मोड ऑन कर दीजिए बस।
ये तो ऑन ही है।
अभी हुआ नहीं सर आपका प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में, या
मैं कर
स्लाइड
रहा
शो
हूँ।
मोड में लगा दीजिए ऊपर
हाँ
से
हाँ
या
वो तो
नीचे।
वो कर लेंगे। है अभी है?
नहीं अभी नहीं हुआ,
अभी नहीं हुआ।
या इसको जूम आउट कर दीजिए क्योंकि पीपीटी छोटी सी दिख रही है आपकी।
नहीं वो तो दिखेगी, मगर स्टॉप शेयर में कह रहा हूँ, एक मिनट। स्क्रीन अब आ रही है प्रेजेंटेशन? मैं करूँ? हेलो,
सर आ रही है बट प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में नहीं है अभी भी।
ये तो यहाँ से तो आ रही है।
आप इसको जूम आउट कर दीजिए ना सर, ये नीचे 50% है ना, इसको थोड़ा बड़ा कर दीजिए, प्लस दबा दीजिए, पीपीटी फुल हो जाएगी आपकी। या F5 प्लस कर दिए तब भी चल पड़ेगी, या प्रेजेंटेशन मोड कुछ भी चला दीजिए, हो जाएगा ये।
नहीं वो कर दिया है, वो नहीं है ना।
यहाँ से फिर आप साइज इंक्रीज कर दीजिए ना नीचे से।
जब आप शेयर करोगे ना उसमें करो फुल स्क्रीन, सेलेक्ट विंडो।
ये आ रहा है ना बराबर।
सर अब ठीक है, स्टार्ट कर दीजिए, परफेक्टली विजिबल है।
ठीक है ना? टाइम है।
Yeah, sir, Preeti will take over first, na?
प्रीति स्टार्ट।
Okay, sir. So, in continuation with the today's session, for the second session, we have with us Professor Dr. Raihana Habib Kant, Dean, Faculty of Agriculture, Sher-e-Kashmir University of Agricultural Sciences and Technology of Kashmir. She is an agriculturist by background and has done PhD in agronomy from Sher-e-Kashmir Agricultural University and in the year 2005. Shall I continue, sir? Okay. So ma'am has been serving in Sher Kashmir Agricultural University as assistant professor cum junior scientist, associate professor cum senior scientist, program coordinator, professor and head division of agronomy, professor cum chief scientist, and dean of faculty of agriculture. So ma'am has more than 25 years of experience in teaching. She has been a member of 35 students in their student advisory committee. Also, for 65 students as a member of their university level committees. If we are talking about ma'am's research experience, then she has been. Hello. So can you mute yourself? Naveed sir, can you mute yourself? Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, so talking about her research experience, ma'am has been handling university-funded projects approved by RCM, 7 externally funded projects, 12 projects submitted for external funding, and ma'am has been involved in the 3 variety released also. Her Naveed sir, please keep yourself muted. Okay. So let's continue. Her tremendous research and scientific caliber reflects in her publications, which includes 78 full-length papers, 19 review papers, more than 100 abstracts, 2 books, and 35 book chapters, technical bulletins, manuals, more than 100 lecture delivered, annual reports, then pamphlets and articles in the newspaper. Ma'am has been a member of various professional bodies like Indian Society of Agronomy, Association of Agrometeorologists, Society of Upliftment of Rural Economy, Association of KVK Scientists, Kashmir Women Credit for Cooperative Limited, Indian Society of Weed Sciences, Indian Meteorological Society, International Society for Agrometeorologists, and World Earth Day Network. Also, ma'am has been a national resource person for Samiti Kashmir and ATMA reforms. Ma'am has been awarded with the Distinguished Scientist Award 2018 by National Agricultural Development Cooperative Limited. She has been an advisor of recipient of Best PhD Thesis Award by National Agricultural Development Cooperative Limited. She has been an Best Extension Worker at Sher Kashmir University of Agricultural Science and Technology, Kashmir, and Best Coordinator Award at ICR Nahi Project. In case of technologies generated, ma'am has been involved in various technologies, including irrigation scheduling of rice, sunflower production, rainfall probability analysis in Kashmir, protected rice nursery, low temperature analysis in Kashmir Valley, crop weather calendars for temperate valley, crop water requirement for major crops in the Kashmir, and standardization of root establishment methods in maize. Other areas of ma'am's expertise include extension documentation, orientation and refresher courses, farm advisory services, T&V workshops, field tours. Ma'am has been conducted more than 100 field tours for different extension purposes. Participation in Kisan Melas, contact with the farmers, and TV and radio talks. So ma'am has been delivering more than 500 TV talks and 70 radio talks. So ma'am's personality is definitely reflecting with her worthy biodata. So with this background, I would like to request ma'am to join the podium and address us. I hope ma'am has joined us.
Yes, I'm joining from Dr. Naveed's.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. It will take me a minute. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Preeti, for such a good introduction. Well, as you know, that nutri cereals or the millets are very much our own indigenous from our own country, from our own land of Hindustan, that's India. And now we have put it on the international level, on the international platform, that we should be encouraging people to have these millets. And that's why they are also called, given the name of Nutri-Cereals as well as Shri Ann. So 2023, as you all know, is the International Year of the Millets. And how we are going to now reintroduce millets to the world is through its different recipes. That is, nowadays our generation would like to eat more of cookies rather than of chapatis. So the things that we have to put life into millets, again, as now it's a challenge to our country, that millets have to be accepted to the whole universe, to the whole world. So the post-harvest technology people have to work more. That is to introduce them as muffins, cookies, special breads, chapatis, biscuits, and khichdi. So this is how they are going to be as a force for introduction to the whole world. So there are many millets, which we put as major millets and small millets. And in major millets, we have pearl millet, great millet, that's sorghum, finger millet, and then we have small millets. In small millets, we have little millet, kodo millet, proso millet, barnyard millet, and foxtail millets. Millets are a group of small annual grasses and are grown as it was not taken as a major crop initially, and it can be grown in dry climate with good temperature, sunshine, and tropical. These millets are very hardy, so that's why also we prefer millets in the areas which are drought prone, or in the areas where we don't get more of rainfall, or in the areas which are having subtropical temperatures, very high temperatures, because they are resistant to high temperatures, they are resistant to drought. So they can also be grown in the temperate regions. So millets are highly climate resilient crops. Climate change is affecting the crop yield and quality of many crops, but millets possess several morphological, physiological, and biological characters, thus are adaptable to dry regions. Early maturity, that's 65 to 85 days. So they escape the drought. Since they are very early maturity, they get mature early. So just in 65 days or up to 85 days, they get mature. So that way they escape the high temperatures or the droughts. They escape that. High drought, they are resistant to drought. That is, even if we have 150 millimeter of rainfall or up to 500 millimeter of rainfall during its crop season, it grows well. And its salinity tolerance also, and high heat tolerance, it can bear up to the temperature of 42 degrees centigrade. So that way, this is climate resilient. It is adapted to adverse, marginal, and changing environments, and it supports increased resilience to climate change. So this is one of the main factors that millets have been accepted this year as the millet year, because of the aspects of the climate change and how millets are resilient to climate change. So this is one of the qualities we have.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Then, yeah.
Ma'am, your screen is not visible. Have you shared it? Or we have...
No, this was visible.
No, ma'am, no. I thought we are having just some kind of introduction or something, but no, I thought.
Okay. I don't know what is happening to it. इन्हें शेयरिंग मत ना, ये शेयर ही नहीं हुई है। आप आ जाओ इधर। Is my screen visible?
No, ma'am, no.
Why doesn't it come? Share screen I'm doing.
Ma'am, just share your whole window, like,
Who can start sharing is host only. So
yeah. No, ma'am. Actually, you have also been given the access and you're also one of the co-hosts probably.
okay,
So
okay.
you can actually share. So are you trying to through this share screen, ma'am? This one only, no? You can see in your screen.
Ma'am, either you can send your presentation to us by mail. We can share from our side.
Yeah, it's visible now. Now the screen is visible. Ma'am, if you're talking, please unmute yourself.
Now is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Your screen is very much visible. Please,
Presentation?
no, ma'am. Presentation mode, please keep it in your presentation mode.
Presentation is not visible?
Presentation is visible, ma'am, but presentation mode is not there. Screen, you can keep.
What
I can do, I can mail you the presentation.
नवीद सर मेल कर दो आप ना हमको
मैं आपको mail करता हूँ, चलिए।
मेल या व्हाट्सएप कुछ जो भी आपको इजी लगे वो कर दो हम कर देते
मैं
हैं
व्हाट्सएप भी कर लेता हूँ आपको।
मैं व्हाट्सएप कर रहा हूँ आपको मेल आईडी इस पे भेज दो
डॉक्टर बटवाल आप चेक कर लीजिए मेल अपने। Yeah, Dr. Badwal, are you there?
Yes sir I am sharing just wait for a while
Yes, please. Thank you.
Priti, is it visible now
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible. Sir.
okay yeah ma'am you can start
So once again, I would like to talk about the promotion of millets and nutritional cereals in JNK UT. Next.
So please, yeah.
So we have the millets, which we consider them as crops for future. Under the major millets, we have pearl millet, great millet, that's also called sorghum, and finger millet. And under the small millets, we have little millet, kodo millet, proso millet, barnyard millet, and foxtail millets. So millets are the collective group of small seeded annual grasses and are grown as grain crops in dry areas of temperate, subtropical and tropical regions. Next. So millets are highly climate resilient crops. That is why it is being accepted by the whole world this time. Because climate change is affecting the crop yield and quality of many crops. But millets possess several morphological, physiological, and biological characters. Thus are adaptable to dry regions. Early maturity, that's mature within 65 to 85 days. High drought tolerant, that is, even if we have only 150 millimeters of rainfall or up to 500 millimeter of rainfall, it can survive. And its salinity tolerance. So if our soils are somewhere saline, we can grow these millets there. And they are highly heat tolerant. That is, they can tolerate a temperature of 42 degrees centigrade. And then they are adapted to adverse, marginal, and changing environments. And they support the increased resilience to climate change. That is why it has been easily accepted as a Shriyan. It has been called as Shriyan because of its nutritive value as well as its morphological characters, which are climate resilient. Next. So millets have high nutrition value. That's they are high in iron, zinc, and folate. They are high in calcium. They are having low GI. That's good for avoiding and managing diabetics. GI index is very low. Then high in protein, dietary fibers, and antioxidants, and they are gluten free. So we see if we compare all these millets with rice and maize and wheat, we see that they are having the lowest glycemic index. So maize is having high, followed by rice, then wheat, and then bajra, and then oats, and then the foxtail millet, white jawar or yellow jawar. So we do recommend these chapatis or products of millets to the people who are having high sugar, that's who are having diabetics. So the nutrient contents of millets and cereal is that they are very high in protein, then in fiber, minerals, iron. If we see all these, we compare. So we see that pearl millet is having high fiber, as well as this kodo millet. Similarly, pearl millet and then proso millet and finger millet are having very high protein. And they may be having little smaller in they are having smaller quantity of iron, but they do possess iron, which is not that much present in the other cereals. Next. Millets are good for planet. They take less and give very more. So millets provide a viable option for the marginal farmers and sustainable production system. They grow with minimal fertilizers and pesticides. Hardly any pesticide is given to it. Any fungicide, herbicide, or any insecticide is given to any of the millets. So that way it's environment friendly also, and friendly for the health of the farmers also. Then they survive with very less water. As I said, that they are also drought prone. They are not susceptible to drought. Even if small quantity of rainfall is there, they can mature. They grow faster, so putting less stress on the environment. So multiple uses is that they can be used as food, feed, fodder, biofuel, and for brewing also. So eaten in many forms. So millets and sorghum are good for the planet. They have been considered now. They are being put as named as smart food because they need less water. They grow faster. They have very low water footprints. They are not putting much effect on our planet. They grow nicely without using our resources. So this is millets are considered sustainable. As a we can refer it for sustainable agriculture because it is not draining our soils in any way. They do not take much of the nutrition from our soils. So they are not depleting the soil. The soil health is also taken into consideration. Our other cereals are heavy feeders on the soil. So that way millets take less and give us more. Next. Next. So they are considered good for the planet. So millets have been given the new name as nutri-cereals. That Government of India started a mission on nutri-cereals, and they have been addressing issues concerning the production, demand, and research with market-oriented approach. They're increasing the production of nutri-cereals through productivity enhancement in the identified districts. They are strengthening the seed supply system. They are enhancing post-harvest value addition at farm grade for better price realization to farmers through efficient market linkages. Next. Next. So the present scenario of millets in Jammu and Kashmir is that we are having a little portion of Jammu district, that's Kashtwar and Jammu and Bandipora, under major millet growing areas. Then we have some of the areas under less millet growing areas, and then mostly we have the non-millet in Kashmir. We have non-millet growing districts, but we have pseudo millets, that is buckwheat we are having in Gurez, and then we are having amaranthus in some of the areas. But this year, because of the International Year of the Millets, we have been preparing, we have been testing some of the millets in our College of Agriculture farm, so that this year we can introduce them to the major areas of the farmers. Next. Next. So the research activity on finger millet at Division of Agronomy, that is in my college, Vadura, is in Kharif 2022. Since it was already declared that this 2023 will be the International Year of the Millets, so the mandate of the Agronomy Division was to see and check how many of the millets, which varieties can be grown in our areas, so that this year we can advocate it to the farmers. So they brought 4 or 5 varieties of finger millet, that is also called the ragi, and then this is the sowing of ragi seeds in the nursery, and then it's germination, and then sowing of ragi seeds in the field. So what the experiment was done was that by 2 methods they propagated the finger millet, that is one through first nursery and then transplanting, and the other, if you are going for a late sowing, then direct sowing into the field. So to see that what we will be advocating to the farmers, because as I already said, in the Jammu, some of the dryland areas of Jammu, millets were being grown, but in Kashmir, no such activity was being done. Next. Next. So this we see that this first picture is that ready to transplant seedlings of finger millet, then transplanting of the ragi seedlings, then vegetative stage of the ragi, or that's finger millet, and then rooting stage of the ragi. Next. Then this is the tillering stage of ragi, that's finger millet. Then this is the flowering stage, and then this is the grain pinning stage, and then this is the maturity stage of ragi. So what by these we are indicating is that this is for the first time sown in the Kashmir Valley. Kashmir Valley is a temperate region. We have very heavy snowfall from December onwards up to March. We are having low temperatures, but from May to September we do have very good temperatures. That is from the month of May we get 17 to 20 degree day temperature, and in the month of June we have, am I audible? In the month of June we are having higher temperatures. So what we recommended was that we tried 4 or 5 dates of sowing and 4 or 5 dates of transplanting, and then they gave a recommendation. Next. Next. So the cultivation practices of ragi, that's the finger millet in Kashmir Valley, was that the soil, finger millet is cultivated on a variety of soils ranging from rich loam to poor shallow upland soils. It prefers porous and well-drained loam to light red loam and sandy loam soil of good fertility and water holding capacity. The soil should be rich in organic matter, and it withstands and thrives well on slightly alkaline soils. For climate, finger millet is a short day plant and grows best in an environment with day temperatures of 30 to 34 degrees centigrade and 20 to 25 degree night temperatures along with good sunshine. It thrives best in the areas where annual rainfall is about 1000 mm. So time of sowing for this now, the recommendation that we gave for the Kashmir Valley is for, if you have to go for direct sowing, then second fortnight of May, and transplanting should be done entire month of June. Spacing 25 to 30 centimeters from row to row and 8 to 10 centimeter plant to plant. The seed should be planted 2 to 3 centimeter in depth. Seed rate 8 to 10 kgs per hectare. Direct sowing 5 kgs per hectare. Transplanting seedling of 20 to 25 days old are ideal for transplanting. Manuring and fertilization. We can apply compost or farmyard manure from 7 to 10 tons about a month before sowing. And generally, fertilizer recommended to get a good crop in rain-fed conditions, 40 to 20 to 20 kg NPK per hectare. And for irrigated is 60 to 30 to 30 kg NPK soil. Soil test-based fertilizer application is recommended. Apply entire quantity of P2O5 and K2O and half of nitrogen at the time of sowing, like we do in the other cereals. Next. So depending on weather condition, if dry spell is long, then 1 to 3 irrigations are needed at critical stage. But if we are getting some scanty rainfalls also, it can bear that. It's not that drought prone. So pests, armyworm has been found in some of the places. Cutworms, stem borers, shoot fly, and air caterpillars are important. The stem borers, the larva bores into the stem, resulting in dead heart. Its control is with the spray of dimethiot or phosmidin. But harvesting is done once the airheads are physiologically mature. Short duration varieties mature in 105 to 120 days, while medium to late varieties mature in 120 to 130 days. So grain yield is 25 to 30 quintals per hectare and 60 to 70 quintals of straw per hectare. Both of these are very important because it is used as fodder also. Next. Next. So the problems which have been seen for millets is that they were grown in J&K on an area of 33,000 hectares in 1955 to 56, which were gradually decreased quarter and recorded as 8,306 hectares during 2021. So why it happened was that with the introduction of green revolution and with the introduction of dwarf varieties, semi-dwarf varieties of wheat and high yielding varieties of rice and wheat, nobody wanted to cultivate millets. The major millets grown were buckwheat species, Phagoprium esculentum, and these two species of buckwheat, Amaranthus, and minor millets, and Steria italica and Panicum milletium. Millets are forgotten crops, whereas in Kashtawar district, cultivation of millets is still in practice, and few plants of Amaranthus are still grown in almost every kitchen garden in Kashmir. The crop is, however, not cultivated commercially, neither in Kashmir nor in Jammu division. The cultivation of all these crops has been abandoned some 5 or 6 decades back throughout Kashmir, excepting in a far-flung hilly areas in North Kashmir. Millets are generally grown by small and marginal farmers on marginal lands, so that was the problem. And farmers use their own farm saved seeds with traditional practices. But now we have the Institute of Directorate of Millets, and they are having a lot of very good high yielding varieties which can be introduced throughout the country. And as I said earlier, because we knew this was going to be the thrust area this year, so we tried 6 varieties of finger millet and 3 we are recommending for our own valley, and seed has been distributed as per the districts, the topography of the districts. So this year we will be having a lot of area under millets, because that is one of the mandates this year, to increase the areas under millets. And mostly these are the areas where maybe maize, beans, or where pulses was being grown. Next. Next. So the future outlook, the Indian Himalayan region had been a major niche area for millet crops as a component of the ethnic culture and livelihood. We used to have, like in Rajasthan, we having bajra ki roti or this, but most of the areas of Jammu, they also used to have the ragi flour or bajra and sorghum. But with, as I said, that with the introduction of high yielding varieties in wheat, it took a back step. But now we are going to revive our traditional foods. So this is going to be the main mandate of the Directorate of Agriculture this year. The farmers easily abandon growing millet due to their ignorance of nutritional benefits and sustainable nature of the crops. At this stage, the need is availability of beneficial agro-production technology, access to machinery for processing of millets, and creating awareness about health and nutritional benefits of millets and how they were interwoven in the forgotten culture traditions. Embracing the forgotten millets can be a sustainable solution to several ills of the region. That's malnutrition, access to food, efficient crops that suit low input agriculture. Millet based fermented beverages are nutritionally superior and are readily acceptable as their own cultural identity. And the combined efforts of state and civil society groups should join hands towards this cause, with the Indian government should extending the benefit of national food security submission on nutri-cereals to the Indian Himalayan states. Next. Next. To have it making very interesting for all, we are having a lot of recipes now. The government of India also had contest on recipes for millets. So to make it very attractive, there are a lot of products that can be made by the millets. So for example, all these beautiful things are made from sorghum, the cookies, the muffins, the cake, the rasgulla types, or the buffy, chocolate brownie, the suji fingers, potato idli, and the sorghum bites. So these are the way we can introduce our millets to the next generation. Next. So these are for the finger millet and pearl millet. This is pearl millet cheese cookies, pearl millet milk chocolate, pearl millet jalebi, pearl millet. This is all dosa and chakki. So this is how we have to introduce millets to the next generation. Next. Next. So this is all the recipes made by Foxtail. Foxtail ladoos are there, cutlets are there, or shake is there, firini, suji, kheer. Next. And this is the bowl of millets, all of these millets which are going to be very important this year. That's the foxtail, sorghum, pearl millet, finger millet, little millet, kodo millet, barnyard millet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a nice presentation, and you very well described all the session that we want
Yeah, actually, since it's
to have from you. So
it's our country who have put this millet year, and so everybody has to work for the promotion of the millets. So as I said that we were not having millets in Kashmir, but we started the work last year, and this year when the people are now ready to accept it, they are having our field photographs and all to see. Yeah, they can go for it, because here also we are having sometimes we are not receiving good rainfall for paddy. So this has proved to be a very good contingent plan, crop plan, because by ending May we get to know that this year we will not be able to grow paddy if the rainfall is not much. So this is the best alternative we can have. And then people were not knowing that much about its nutrition value, but with diet conscious people now, the millets have come now as a passion diet also, because now you know that it has having low GI content but higher other nutrition values. So this is mandatory for our part to promote millets.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. My network got disconnected, ma'am. I want to ask is like there are some minor millets also.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, like there is a term called.
Hello. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello.
There are minor millets. Yeah, like I introduced major millets, minor millets. Then even there are some false millets also, pseudo millets, which we are having here, buckwheat and amaranthus. Basically, they are not the under the major millets, but we are having. They were here and they have been put as also as because they are as grasses, so they are considered as millets.
Okay. Ma'am, somebody is asking like what is the scope of millets processing in Jammu and Kashmir and in North India especially? Like processing of millets, how we can do, and what is the scope of that, ma'am?
Yeah, that has to be done now. If the millets will be grown on a large areas, then the processing will come itself. But on the whole, we can use the flour mills for millet processing. But if it is then grown on large areas, that is what I told under problems, that processing has to be introduced in this area. But there are flour mills which can make them like we harvested the finger millet and made it as a flour. We got a flour made of it, and then we can put it in any recipe, give it to the bakery shop, and they can put it as dosa and this chira you can make. That's not a big problem. But now it is being given as cakes and other things. So and small equipment, small machineries available in the market, which make other things from these millets. But once the area under millets will be extended, only then a big chain of post harvest technology will come in. But it is available. Tomorrow we'll be having Kishan Mela here in our university, and a lot of work done on millets will be shown tomorrow, like all these food processing things and different types of flours made from different millets. They will be introduced to the farmers tomorrow, because this is one of the hitch that but small machineries are available.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one more question is there, like this is the very idea of this theme, Millets Mahotsav and these things. Our farmers or our students, or you can say entrepreneurs, are not very well versed with the millets, and they are not very well aware about the millets nowadays. So, what do you think? What are the things that we can encourage about the millets, and what do you think? What are farmers can be encouraged about the millets, ma'am?
Yeah. So the first thing is seeing is believing. So first of all, if we would last year, would anybody would tell me to go for millets, I would say no. We have not grown millets here. We are having only buckwheat, and that has also been obsolete. That is now only in the Gurez area. But so to see whether Kashmir temperature is suitable or not, so I said that last year we introduced 3-4 types of finger millets. Only we took one millet, that's finger millet, and we got 4-5 varieties. And then we have now shortlisted 2-3 varieties which we can recommend to the farmers. And then like this program, awareness programs have to be carried out. Awareness programs for the nutrition value of the millets, for different recipes of the millets that we can make into very tasty. We can make very tasty sandwich or this dosa, or we can make very tasty. We can put some vegetables in it and make it a complete food. So that way, that thing has to be introduced. That thing, the awareness has to be. That is why this year of the millets is going to have so many programs for awareness of millets, for farmers also, for students also, for others consumers who can just eat millet. So it is both way. We have to grow millet, as well as we have to promote growing of the millets, and we have to promote eating of the millets. So both of the things have to be done. So in both of these things, there will be many linkages. Like we as an agronomist or agriculture had to test some varieties of the millets. So we have tested few, not all. We know sorghum can be grown here. Because we have been using sorghum here as a fodder, but not as feed. So we have done a little bit of manipulation in the sowing dates, so that we used to sow it in June, July, so that we were not concerned about its seed, because we were concerned about its fodder only, the foliage only. But now we know that if we introduce it we will sow it just 20 days before. So it will mature after 20th of September. It will mature, and we will be getting the sorghum, from which then we will make the flour for biscuits or for dosa or something. So sorghum varieties we know which will be good for in Kashmir Valley. Millets, 3 varieties we have chosen, which will be very good, and we had already recommendation from the university has gone to the Directorate of Agriculture, so that they will recommend those varieties, they will buy those seed of those varieties, and they will give to the farmers. So those things have been done. Then recipes, our food technology division is trying a lot, connecting with the local bakery people to get some portion of buckwheat or this sorghum or this put in cakes, chocolates and all, so that it will be introduced as a good food. So tomorrow also there will be a lot of recipe contests are going on there, and students, we in our university we get students from other states also. So by that we have students from Maharashtra, Orissa, and they are making a lot of products. And now that way they are introducing it to the Kashmiri boys and girls, to us also. So that will be shown tomorrow. So that is the need of the hour for the whole this International Year of the Millets. We are having this objective to popularize sowing as well as eating of millets. So how we can eat it, in which method we can eat it, by which processing method, or by which form, whether you take it in a cookie or you take it as a chapati or you take it as a dosa. So that will be introduced, and also which varieties in which areas can be grown. So that has to be introduced, but it is not for 1 year only. It has to be introduced in the way, it has to be promoted in the way that they will go for its cultivation every year, because it is climate resilient, it is environment friendly, it is not draining your soils, it is not draining the economy, it's only giving. So that is the importance of millets, which they had been forgotten. And with the people now again the trend of not eating chapati, not eating rice has come. So that way also it will be easily adapted by the new generation, because they are not that much prone to eating of rice and wheat, which in the middle of the 50 years, in the last 10 decades, 5 decades we saw, after the green revolution and increase in the high yielding varieties, more area under rice and wheat. So that way we can see that it will be adapted by the farmers.
Ma'am, do we have MSP or something like that fixed for millets? Or if it is, there are many varieties of millets also. So if it is there, for which millets we have MSP fixed by the government?
Basically, it is, as I said, it's not the major crop here, mostly. But in some of the states, they have fixed the MSP for millets. Where it is grown in abundant, like in Maharashtra or somewhere in south, 1 or 2 areas, they have. But that is one of the problems. It's not like rice and wheat that or means that an MSP throughout the country has been. That's one of the problems which this year the government is looking into.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time and efforts. It was really a nice presentation from your side. I am very much interested. I was very much interested, and I hope our participants were also feeling the same. So on the behalf of the participants, our agriculture team, and on the behalf of me, I thank you once again. Thank you so much, ma'am. Looking forward to hear you once again, ma'am, in some other presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have our next guest joined with us. So continuing today's session, I would like to request our next guest, who is Joanna Kenny, who began her career as an agricultural economist in her home country, Australia, and later moved into a wide variety of marketing related areas in food and agriculture. Ma'am has worked in private industry, government, and for non-profit organizations also, including for international agriculture and food non-profit organizations working in India. And 9 years until recently, she has been working already, as well as in Sri Lanka, Italy, Malaysia, and now in the Philippines. Joanna ma'am was previously the Assistant Director General at the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, that is ICRISAT, and founder and executive director of the Smart Food Initiative, which was selected in 2017 by USAID and the Australian government as one of the winning top 10 global food innovations. Also driving the demand for smart foods, they are good for you, planet, and farmer was a big focus for her work over the last decade. She was instrumental in her efforts to derive demands for millets as a smart food. In this January, she joined the International Rice Research Institute in Philippines as the Deputy Director General of Strategy, Engagement, and Impact, where she plans to expand the learnings from millets to continue to make smarter staples along with the rice. So we are happy to have you, ma'am, here. I welcome you here and I request you to join the podium and address our audience. Thank you, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
Great. Thanks, Preeti. Okay, great to be here and always good to support Just Agriculture, always having such big, excellent events. So I assume people are quite exhausted talking about millets. So I was hoping I'd take a slightly different angle in presenting some different ways of looking at millets. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's very much visible.
All right. Okay. So so I'm going to talk about how to have big impact through staples. So, but what I'm going to do first is talk about a lot of the global issues first, to put this in perspective, so we see where does millets fit in with the big global issues that are happening now. Three big issues. People talk about the 3 C's now. So climate change, conflict, and COVID-19. So with climate change, I mean, that's really top of the agenda for the majority of countries now. And it is leading to more natural disasters and leading to a need to be able to both mitigate climate change and adapt to climate change. Originally, when climate change finally, thank goodness, got onto the global agenda, the big focus was around energy, but more recently, we've seen the focus move more into agriculture, and agriculture both being a cause to climate change, as well as it's part of the solution for climate change. And later I'm going to put millets into the perspective of all of this. Now, conflict is the next big issue on the global agenda. And what we've seen is, especially the latest big conflict with the war in Ukraine, what it means is a lot of countries have wanted to become more self-sufficient. They've been looking for alternatives, because what we've seen, for example, is wheat becoming in short supply, because a large percentage of the world wheat supply was coming from Russia and Ukraine. But we've also seen the impact of the war on higher prices of food, fuel, and fertilizers. And so that's really been impacting agriculture around the world. So I'm not just talking about India here, I'm talking about the global issues too. And then, of course, COVID has impacted all of agriculture very significantly. What it's led to now is that countries are being more concerned about self-sufficiency, because we all had supply chains disrupted terribly during COVID, and also people looking for stronger regional linkages, so that it's going to be easier when we have supply chain disruptions, when supplies are coming from a closer location. COVID-19 also led to a higher health awareness. So people's general health conditions made a very big difference to how they coped with COVID-19. So those 3 big issues have been really the biggest on the global agenda. But also big, it continues to be hunger and poverty being a big issue. It's still not solved. And general nutrition and health being a big issue still. And if you've seen, for example, in India, anemia in particular, and iron deficiency anemia has actually been increasing. At the same time, we still have a lot of environmental issues with soil degradation is still increasing. Water scarcity continues to be a huge issue, and biodiversity loss continues. And so we've been seeing a focus more on more sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture. Then, of course, we've still got issues around social equity and empowerment, and especially women empowerment. And there's a lot of programs across India as well in how we engage the women more and empower them. Then along with all of these have been different economic disasters. So you saw what happened in Sri Lanka last year, and potential recession, potential global recession is still a high risk at the moment, and it's going to impact significantly. And across all of this is when we talk about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, how we want to improve, how we've got so many targets there for hunger, poverty, nutrition, and so on. So that cuts across all these areas. So this is sort of the environment of what are the big issues there, and I'll talk about then how that impacts for millets. But last year, when the UN brought out their annual State of Food Security and Nutrition, they said there that, and this is a huge statement, they said this year's report should dispel any lingering doubts that the world is moving backwards in its efforts to end hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition in all its forms. So that's a really big statement. And what's scary is the fact that we are going backwards. And of course, that was impacted by COVID and a lot of other issues. So it really means that we've got to relook at the solutions that are currently there. And you've probably heard there's a lot of talk now about transforming the food system. Now, if you look at the definition of transforming, transform doesn't just mean change. It means big change. It means if we don't have some radical, big, transformative change, we're not going to solve these solutions. And as you saw, we're going backwards in many of them. Now, to have that transformative change, well, we've got to also change our approach. The solutions, what we do, has to be transformative as well. It's not continue to do the same and keep improving. We actually have to radically rethink the solutions. Also, part of that is we really should have a holistic approach. Any one individual intervention is not going to solve this. So how do we look at the whole value chain, the whole environment around it, all the different solutions? How do we bring a more holistic approach together? And unless we bring solutions to scale, we won't have a transformative change as well. So, I mean, these are not easy things to do, but it's how we have to be thinking if we really want to make a difference. Now, if we look at, if you talk about the food system, well, the food system is actually really based on staples. Because if you look here, rice, wheat, and maize account for 94% of all cereal consumption globally. That's absolutely huge. Those same big three, rice, wheat, and maize, deliver 60% of food energy globally. And 45% of private sector agricultural research around the whole world, that investment is in one crop, 45% in one crop, which is maize. So you see, if we're talking about the food system, the staples are very much dominating. If you look here where they looked at changes in food, the contribution of crops to our diet by calorie intake. The three biggest increases are oils, wheat, and rice. And the three biggest decreases were sorghum, cassava, and millets. So not only are staples dominating, we've seen a huge change and shift. If you look at India as an example, so since 1960 to 2020, the production of major staples in India, so you see rice, the red line there, has tripled in its production. If you see wheat, it was right down very close to millet and sorghum and maize. Wheat increased 800%. And now more recently, maize is starting to take off. But millets and sorghum have stayed very, very stable. So they were still a significant part of the staples before the Green Revolution. And as others grew, then the millets and sorghum didn't grow in production or consumption. That these graphs, even though we export, they very much still represent consumption as well. So now what we say is if we really want to have a big impact, and we've talked about the big issues that we've got there, and we need transformative change, to have big impact, we have to do it through the staples. That's not saying that other food isn't important, but I'm just saying to have big impact, then we've got to somehow work on the staples. And there's two key ways to do that. One is to make the existing staples smarter. And when I say smarter, I mean it's got to be grown in a more environmentally friendly way. It's got to be more supportive to the farmers, and it's got to be more nutritious. The other way to have big impact through staples is diversifying the staples. Now, this is where millets come in, because this was looked at quite a few years ago, and it was decided to try millets as the first staple to bring, a first crop to bring back as a staple. So a very big effort was put on millets. But the challenge we had was what we call the food system divide. So just like any divide, so what's happened is the big three crops were very well invested. Now, if you invest in something, it does well. And the better it does, the more easily it attracts more investment. And then it does even better, and then it attracts more investment. And so you've got this cycle. So you create a divide because now the big three have been highly successful. They have very well developed value chains. So it becomes more difficult for something to come in and compete in that environment. There's a divide there. So when we were looking at how can we bring millets back into the staples, so instead of the big three, we create the big four, and later you should create the big five, and you should keep going. We need to keep diversifying. And that's important for the environment. It's important for health and nutrition. So it's going to be difficult to do that. And there's no simple solution, but it meant it needed a concerted big effort. And it meant that you needed to focus just on one crop at a time to bring back on at a staple. No use trying to bring 50 back at a time. So one at a time, you need to build the value chains, you need to bring it back and learn from the successes of the big three as well. Now, you've all seen there's many different types of millets, and they all have quite different characteristics. They look different, they can taste a little bit different. One interesting part with the small millets is that, you can boil it in water and cook it just like rice. It can, and it's very easy as a staple. Of course, we've been looking at alternate uses as well, but it is an easy staple. Now, the reason millets had been selected as the crop to focus on to bring it back as a staple, as a major staple, was because it was what we call, it was a smarter food. It was good for the planet, the farmer, and good for the nutrition of the consumer. So many of the millets are very high in iron and zinc. Now, iron, zinc, and vitamin A are the top 3 micronutrient deficiencies worldwide. So millets fitted 2 of the most critical needs for micronutrients globally. And of course, the iron, as I mentioned before, we know that an iron deficiency anemia has been increasing in India, and it's very, very prevalent in many, many countries. So millets fill this particular need. Oh, okay. Also, the finger millet or ragi has 3 times the amount of calcium as milk. So extremely important for children, extremely important for women. I mean, everybody needs the calcium to grow and to stay healthy. And the finger millet is just so high in calcium, like extremely high, very rare to have that. So that's extremely valuable proposition. And we did studies to look at the bioavailability of the calcium in the finger millet. Now, bioavailability is how much your body absorbs that nutrient. And we found it was almost exactly the same as milk. Milk is about 31-32% bioavailability, and finger millet's about 29%. So it's almost the same. So it means you will get 3 times the amount of calcium from finger millet as you will from the equivalent of milk. Particularly important in many areas of Asia, people are lactose intolerant. So this also is another healthy alternative. And of course, finger millet was traditionally used in India as a weaning porridge for babies because of that high calcium. Now, the millet's also high in dietary fiber. They also have good protein levels, high in antioxidants, and gluten-free. So they've got a lot of great characteristics, and this is only some, but some of the key ones. Now, from a farmer and environmental perspective, millets grow with minimal fertilizers and pesticides, so they have a low carbon footprint, and actually they've got almost a neutral carbon footprint. They need a lot less water to grow. So they survive with 30% less water than maize, 70% less water than rice. They have a very short growing time. They're very useful, especially with climate change and other risks. And it also means, having a short growing time also means that they can be used with other crops when there's a short period between cropping seasons, then the millets are suitable. They also survive in dry, hot conditions. With climate change, we know temperatures are increasing. They also have the potential to increase yield because they've had a lot less investment, as I've mentioned before, then now many of the big 3 crops are reaching a yield plateau, whereas the millets haven't got to that yet. There's great potential still to increase the yield, but we have to invest in the scientific research for that. And of course, they've got multiple uses. So they're used for human food, but also feed and fodder, for brewing and different industrial uses and biofuels. So what we came to years ago is that we saw a need, first of all, to work on popularizing millets. They had started to have a negative image, seen as an old-fashioned food or a food for poor people. And so we saw there's many things needed, but the first step was to try to popularize them. Now, we undertook a survey, a consumer survey, which is the largest consumer survey ever undertaken on consumer insights of millets. So we did 15,500 face-to-face interviews in cities across 7 states in India. So I'll just present here, and we published the results too. I'll just present here a few of the key results that came from that. And this is a few years ago now, but still very interesting to understand how some of the consumers are thinking about millets. So first of all, the biggest reason why people ate millets, which was very interesting, and this really shows who's your first adopters for millets. The biggest reason was, I have a health problem. So for example, people who may have diabetes, and actually I forgot to mention before, the low glycemic index of millets is an extremely important characteristic. But what this showed is the first adopters of millets were people who had a health problem and were looking for solutions. Then other answers were, it's good for losing weight. I like the taste. It keeps me full longer. It's cheap to buy. It's healthy. Now, the next question was why people do not eat millets or do not eat more millets. So the key reason there is no one else in the home eats it. 40% of people, that's very high. So what it means is if we can influence the right person at home, then you've got a multiplier effect of the number of people that will eat it. So getting to the home is very important. Some of the other reasons were I don't like the taste or it's not easy to find. Okay, now, all our surveys were done in shopping malls. So you had a particular type of person that you were interviewing that were in the shopping malls in the cities. Now, 90% of the people interviewed were reasonably or very health conscious, yet only 40% of people were sure that millets were healthy. So there was a big gap there in knowledge. With a target group of people who would be interested in millets because they're quite health conscious. So that showed a potential. If we could build the awareness, there's a potential to drive consumption. Well, we also asked people where they get their information on health and foods. Not surprisingly, 63% was from social sources. Now, that included social media and advice from friends and family. But then there were other areas like TV shows, courses, newspapers, etc. But that social interaction is extremely important. Okay, so that was the consumer survey. Now, we also did some other studies to try to see how millets would be accepted. So we worked with Akshapatra, and we did the very first school feeding program on millets. And what we did is we worked with our nutritionists, worked with the chefs at Akshapatra, and we designed meals, making sure they were tasty, making sure they were healthy, etc. And we also did something quite radical. Now, this was peri-urban Bangalore area, so a high rice eating area. So for the 3 months of the school feeding program, we didn't serve rice at all, and we just served millet cooked like rice, and then we had some other millet dishes as well. So we took a bit of a risk, and we had 4 schools involved, so 1,500 children who were served the millet-based meals every day at school, and 1,500 students who continued for normal, and we tracked both groups, the groups that were eating what they normally would be eating and the groups eating the millet-based meals. Now, we did laboratory testings on the meals that we designed with the chefs. So you can see here the iron and zinc of the meals that we provided versus what they normally had was significantly higher. And also, so on where it's got a dotted line down the middle, on one side are the standard meals, and then on the other side are all the millet-based meals. So the millet-based meals being much, much higher in iron, zinc, calcium, and magnesium. Also much higher in protein, or that's meant to say total fats and fiber and energy. So we tested the growth of the children. So the children with the millet-based meals grew 50% faster than the other children without the millet-based meals. So that was an amazing result. Even we didn't expect that. But we also tested how much the children liked the meals. That was just as important. And they regularly filled out survey forms about what they thought about the different meals. And all the millet-based meals got 4.5 or higher out of 5 for taste. So that was very positive. But we had run a program at the same time, teaching the kids and the teachers about millets, and making it fun as well was important. Some of our messages or our learnings that we thought were important from doing that program was that it was important to how you incorporated millets into any school feeding programs or any meals. It's not a case of just adding millets, it's how you do it. So for example, we selected the millets by the particular nutrients we wanted. Different millets and different varieties vary in the level of nutrients. We thought about how you combine foods. So for example, you need vitamin C for your body to absorb iron. So we thought about what else we included in the meal that would help with the absorption of the nutrients. And we thought about the whole balance of the diet, etc. So it's not just a case of I'll add millets and we'll have amazing results. There's a little more to it. Point 2 is about policy. So it's about creating a level playing field. So it's very difficult for millets to compete when they are not either in the minimum support price for farmers or any of the other schemes that are there. So we do need a level playing field. Plus, we would actually say that policymakers need to provide an incentive at the moment to help break this food industry divide that we talked about. You need to incentivize. Later, it'll be profitable in its own right, but to break that, to come into into industry and on the markets, needs the incentives. Now, we also talk about when you're working with millet, selecting them by the type and variety of millet and whole grain. So as I mentioned, different types of millets have different levels of nutrients, but those nutrients also vary significantly by variety. So you can quadruple the amount of iron in a millet just by which variety you select. Now that's huge difference, huge. And at the moment, the industry is not sophisticated enough to even be able to say, I want variety XYZ. You just get the particular millet, but you cannot select by variety. And we really need to start to do this more. Whole grain is extremely important. So at the moment, well, there's some polishing of millets. I mean, rice is actually very nutritious, but one of the biggest problems is that we refine it. So we strip all the fiber out and we strip a lot of the nutrients out. There is a risk we can do that with millets as well. So we have to be very careful. Now, it's a little bit easier with rice because this is a gross generalization. However, if you see a brown rice in one hand and if you see white rice in the other hand, probably the white rice is refined and the brown rice is not refined. So you can see it with your eyes. You can't do that so easily with millets unless you really are quite a specialist on millets. So we have to be very careful and make sure the industry doesn't go down this track. Then the last point there is about promoting millets in a fun and positive way. When we looked at how to popularize millets, it's not just about telling people how healthy they are and how good for the environment they are. It's about making it fun. Of course, the food has to be tasty no matter what, but it's also creating a whole image. It's marketing at the end of the day. So we have to realize that it is marketing that's going to popularize millets. Now, you'd have all seen many different millet products, I'm sure, through all the talks. And these are some from India, but I thought I'd show some from other countries because I thought maybe they haven't been seen. So here you see in Australia where they mix different grains, rice and millets and other grains, and then they're pre-cooked. The next one is from Germany, where you have the foxtail millet baby porridge, where you have a pear, apple, and millet mixture. So that's very unusual. And then the one from France, again, it's a millet and quinoa sort of mix, pre-cooked. Now, the example down the bottom, which is in West Africa. Now here, there's a story here, which is a good example about what's happened, how the image of millets makes a huge difference. So in West Africa, it's very dry, arid area, very similar to Rajasthan. So you can't grow wheat there because it's not the right agroecology. So wheat is imported and it's highly expensive. So Nestle wanted to change their wheat-based Cerelac product and instead use pearl millet because it's grown locally, because as you know, pearl millet's probably one of the hardiest of all the millets, and that's why it's grown in Rajasthan and it's grown in West Africa. And it's particularly high in iron and zinc. So, so Nestle went about changing their Cerelac and basing it on pearl millet. When they first started selling it, they had a very negative reaction from the consumers. Now, I don't actually think this was the babies saying, oh, we don't like it. It was the parents thinking that wheat is superior because it's imported and from the West, and that their local food, which they see as old-fashioned food, isn't as good, which it's actually even better. But Nestle said that they were going to persist and through marketing try to change that image so that they could keep their product millet-based. But this is an example, and so it's in India, it's in many countries, this challenge that we have of the image of millets. And that's why at the beginning, when we were doing all of our work over the last 10 years, we focused a lot on changing the image of millets. And one way we did this is we've done a lot of work with startup companies in developing modern, convenient products that are tasty and creates that modern image. That was important to us, even though that initially only reaches the upper end of the more urban, higher socioeconomic market. It was still important as the first step to change the image of millets. Here's some others. Here in Hungary, there's organic millet balls, so an extruded product. There's a company called Insane Grain in the UK that use sorghum to, again, do the extruded snacks. And the reason they started up is that they saw that in the UK, a lot of families now don't sit down and have meals together, and that majority of calories are coming from snacking. So they wanted to create a healthy snack. They wanted to make it affordable and tasty and trendy so that they could get to the average consumer. And so that is sort of their sort of purpose for their company. And then here you see in Malaysia, the millet milk product, and then in Nigeria, in Africa, where you have sorghum for the Milo drinks. Sorry, this was the West Africa sign. This was actually on a huge billboard in the streets in West Africa. The UK. Okay, so coming closer to the end, I've only got 2 more slides. Some key points on how you would incorporate nutrition into agriculture and how you take millets as part of this. Okay, so what we say is when we look at agriculture, that we really should be looking at a triple bottom line. So just like companies nowadays use a triple bottom line, they're not just about profits, they're about people and the planet as well. So if you applied that to agriculture, then it's about how do we make our food system good for you, so it's nutritious, good for the planet, and good for the farmer. How does the farmer get engaged in this in a way that it's viable for the farmer? Then, of course, what I mentioned before, it's about working with staples, so making the current staples smarter, but then it's also about diversifying the staples, and that's how we can have big impact, and that's where millets can play a major role. Making sure we select by variety as well. Now, this is still to be developed in the industry, but absolutely critical if we want to look at nutrition. And the challenge we have with varieties is, of course, farmers are going to select variety by which has the best yields, or it's easier to harvest, or some other criteria that's farm related. Now, the challenge is no one can see the nutrition level in a seed or in the final grain. So we really have to do more about how it's branded and recognized and so forth. So there's a lot of work still to do in that area. Again, making sure we stay very aware about how do we keep millets whole grain. And they will become polished because it makes it quicker to cook. It makes it lighter to taste. It makes it a lighter color as well. And it's interesting because I talk to a lot of people about whole grain, for example, with rice, where people prefer white rice and they just say, oh, but it just tastes better. But it's just what we're used to. It actually doesn't necessarily taste better or worse. It's about what we're used to and we've grown up with. So we have a chance with millets with the younger generation who haven't been as aware about millets, having them grow up with whole grain millets. Now, processing and cooking methods significantly impact the nutrition and health as well. Now, it's not necessarily that processing is bad. Processing can improve the nutrition and health benefits because all foods have certain what we call anti-nutrients like phytates in them, and they stop us absorbing the goodness, the nutrients. So different processing and cooking methods break down those anti-nutrients and therefore allow us to absorb the nutrients better. So actually most with millet, we've done a lot of studies on the different collating information on the different processing methods on millets, and almost all of them will improve the bioavailability of the nutrients. So it's actually positive, but there becomes a stage where something's ultra processed or unhealthy ingredients are added. And this is a challenge now with so many new millet products coming on the market, and some companies are taking advantage, which you should, of the fact that millets are being recognized as healthy. And so they'll put in, like I've seen millet muesli advertised, and then I looked at the back and there was 2% millet in it. Now, so many consumers do not read the ingredients list. I mean, I never, ever buy anything without fully reading the ingredients list and the nutrients table. But I'm unusual, I think. Most people don't do that. So yes, we have to be careful what's become ultra processed and what's actually got healthy ingredients or not. Food combinations, like I mentioned before, very important. Food combinations can make a big impact on whether or not we absorb nutrients. So for example, the finger millet, which we talked about, that's very, very high in calcium. If you are deficient in vitamin D, which is a very big issue in India, then vitamin D is needed to absorb calcium. So sometimes potentially just giving more ragi drinks or ragi porridge or anything like that isn't necessarily going to help, say, the children or the people with their calcium needs, because if you're short in vitamin D, you're not going to absorb it as well. So understanding food combinations is very important. And anybody involved in food processing, they can actually do that when they're developing products. They can think about what combinations are needed to maximize the benefit of that product. The level playing field and the incentives for these smarter foods like millets, absolutely necessary to make it viable for the farmer especially. Marketing, as I've mentioned, absolutely important for the to sell the millets to the consumer. And my last point, it's a bit of an odd point to be last, and I left it last because this has received the least amount of attention, because we've been putting a huge amount of effort into changing the image of millets, helping get healthy, sort of modern, convenient, tasty products out there. Now what's really needed next is a huge emphasis on the increase of yields of millets. So this is where scientific research is needed. We've got to make it more profitable for the farmers. One of the reasons that millets have stayed very stable is because in both production and consumption is because it's not as viable for farmers. Now, farmers who live in very marginalized lands where not much will grow because it's not a very good soil and environment, millets are so hardy, they'll survive almost anywhere. And so those farmers will grow millets because it's almost the only thing that will grow. Now, yields of millets have been increasing, but they're still very low compared to the big crops. So it's not as viable for farmers. Now, some farmers in some of the more traditional areas have grown millets, but it's still not the crop of choice. It's not a highly profitable crop for many farmers. It's still an income source. It's still important, but we've got to lift it to another level that farmers are really keen and want to grow millets, and it's profitable. It's got to be viable for the farmer. So that's, I think, yes. Okay. So there were some points. I didn't time it, but I think I started early and I've finished early. But very happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was really an interesting session. And I hope our participants were also enjoying the session. And explain the things was literally was very interesting. So there are some questions that I would like to ask with your permission. So the first question is like, ma'am, in India, we are celebrating the International Year of Millets. Like we are having conclaves, we are having conferences, we are having other awareness programs. So what about the international, like in other countries, how we are celebrating? So we can have some ideas about that, how to aware and how to do these things. So in other countries, how do we are celebrating?
Yeah, it's wonderful for India, but it's very sad for the rest of the globe where almost no country is celebrating it. There's a few initiatives going on. For example, in the US, there's a group called the North American Millets Association, and especially for the Year of Millets, they're running a webinar series on millets, and they'll run one a month or one every quarter. And I know one university in the US, which is where I'm part of helping them with their curriculum, where they're in the grain school, they're running a special session this year on millets. But there's actually, it's a real pity. There's very, very little being done in any other country. And India is the absolute other extreme. I've never seen any international year in India or any other country in the world do so much. You've got your Prime Minister so committed behind it. And actually probably the best way the world is seeing something promoted about the international millets is the activities that India is doing globally. So, for example, they've sent millet packages to every one of the Indian embassies overseas. Many of the Indian embassies overseas have been having big events and inviting others from the other embassies and having millet dishes. I was talking to a friend at the Australian embassy in Delhi just a couple of weeks ago, and she said, absolutely every event we go to with the government is millet meals. She said, oh, I've never eaten so much millet in my life. So all the embassies of all the countries are being invited to all the events and eating a lot of millets. And of course, APIDA in India is organizing a lot of events overseas at the trade shows, where they're having huge millet displays and putting on many different companies' products. So thankfully, India is doing a lot, and the world is seeing it through the eyes of India.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, next question is like, do we need biofortification in millets, or how do biofortified crop varieties are good for health?
Okay, very good question. All right, so just in case some people aren't aware of the difference between biofortified and fortified, biofortified is where just through normal conventional breeding methods, well, it can be through any methods, but we select crops according to the ones that have the higher nutrient levels. So rather than selecting only by yield or resilience, etc., we also select by the nutrient levels. So it's naturally fortified with the higher nutrients, which is being done. But then fortified food is where we add the vitamins to the food. So now when that's added, majority of the time it's synthetic vitamins and minerals. Now it doesn't mean it's different because the chemical composition is the same. Iron naturally produced or iron produced in a laboratory is technically the same chemical composition. However, one's synthetically produced and one is naturally produced. So when it's fortified food, it's typically synthetically produced vitamin and mineral. And typically to add that to the food, you've had to ultra process it to get it. It's not a case of you just sprinkle on the vitamin. It'd be nice if it was, but it's not. It goes through quite a complex processing method to be able to do that. Plus it's expensive. And my personal view, and it's a personal view, is that fortified food or supplements are important in acute situations where, you know, there really is a desperate need and terrible malnutrition, and we really need to fix something and it's urgent, and we really should be helping in this way. It is not a solution for long term when we have a poor diet to say we'll bring in the synthetic minerals and vitamins and we won't let people actually change their diet or learn or etc. But of course, that's a longer term as well. It's not that easy. But so I'm a very big believer in biofortified and building awareness, etc. I hope that answered the question. I could talk a lot on that one.
No, ma'am, very well explained, very well said actually. Ma'am, one more question is like, there is a curious question, like what are the indigenous crops that are there in Australia, ma'am?
What are indigenous crops? Okay. Well, actually, I was quite excited to find there's even an indigenous millet in Australia. You know, this is, I'll go slightly on a tangent for a moment because this is important, that this is a huge advantage of millets is that they actually originate from many, many countries, and they actually are grown in many countries. May not be a big crop. I mean, India has the largest number of types of millets and grows such a lot compared to other countries. However, there are some millets that originate from India, some originate from Africa, some originate from Japan, some originate from China. There's native millets to many countries, So the native millet in Australia was actually originally grown by the Aborigines and turned into a flour and made what we call a damper, but it's a type of bread. But there's other, of course, native foods as well.
Ma'am, this is all about the questions. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your efforts. And we are extremely helpful. We are extremely thankful to you. And we are more than happy if you can join in our other meetings as well. If you can share your presentation in other conferences as well. So thank you so much. Especially, the best part was when you told about the how we can incorporate the millets into meals, and the case studies of course when you told about how like children are reacting when you are incorporating the millets into the meals, and how they're reacting, and what the main reaction is. So the case studies were literally very interesting, and thank you ma'am for your efforts. So we are happy to have you, and thank you so much once again on the behalf of Team Just Agriculture, on the behalf of all the participants. I thank you once again.
Right. Oh, well, thank you, Preeti. And I always enjoy coming on and talking with Just Agriculture.
Thank you, ma'am. We are more than happy. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, ma'am. So this is for today. We shall meet again tomorrow with the new sessions. So I would like to end up the session, and thank you so much. Have a nice day.